Everyone, it's Emily Fox. So today's video is going to be all about short books. Books that are under 250 pages. That's kind of what was my line that I decided to go with. Although most of these books are more like 100 something pages. I just wanted to share a bunch of my favorite ones because the end of the year is approaching. Some of you might be starting to feel the pressure to try and hit your reading goal for the year. The Goodreads one is like very soon ending, and I just wanted to try and help you, whether you have that pressure or not really. These are great books. I also like reading short books whenever I'm trying to find a palette cleanser in between bigger books. So I went through my bookshelves and I picked up all the books that I think you might enjoy also, basically the best of the best. And I realized I have so many that I think I might have to separate this into different videos. So let's get into it. So like I mentioned, the end of the year is approaching, which means the holidays, which means I always feel the need to reread Harry Potter. Obviously, the books are longer than 250 pages, so they're disqualified. However, there are a bunch of little novellas that you can get from the same universe, and they kind of satisfy that craving if you are looking for something new. For example, The Tales of Beedle the Bard, which were part of the universe because you kind of hear about some of these, especially the tale of the three brothers, which is definitely important in the series. But you also get a few other ones that you kind of hear little mentions here and there, but you get to actually enjoy them. If you don't know, they're basically children's stories that are read to little wizards. And it was really nice, a very quick read. There are a few other ones. For example, I know there is one about Quidditch, which I did listen to it as an audiobook and it was fine, just not as good as this one. I also actually really wanted to talk about the Pottermore Presents. There are 3 little novellas that are about 70 pages long and they're really great. For example, I believe the first one is my favorite one because you get a lot of background story for Professor McGonagall, which is one of my all-time favorite characters. You get kind of to hear about her love story in the past and then how Lupin, for example, became a werewolf. So you get all of that information. That backstory was really interesting to get more. And yeah, there are 3 different ones. So you get overall more information. And for me, anything I can get from that world, I will try and get. So yes, definitely wanted to recommend more Harry Potter because again, the holidays, perfect time for it. They also make for a great gift to any Harry Potter fans. I also wanted to talk about some classics because I find that classics either are really long or they can be actually quite short and interesting, and personally makes me feel a little better about cheating sometimes in reading a shorter book. There's no cheating involved, let's be real. But sometimes you can still feel like, oh, you know, is it really a real book if it's 50 pages long? It can be if it's a classic. Not very serious, but I wanted to talk about 2 in this video that are very short but very enjoyable. The first one being The Curious Case of Benjamin Button by F. Scott Fitzgerald. If you find that I'm struggling really hard today, is that I am still getting over tonsillis. Is that how you say that in English? Anidalit. And that combination with my Invisalign, really hard talking today. Anyway, such a great book. I feel like most of you have probably seen the movie, and as much as it was really enjoyable, the book is actually completely different, and I mean completely different. This book is about 52 pages, so it's definitely under 250 pages. You can easily read this in an hour or 2. I found the writing beautiful. I really enjoyed how different it was once again from the movie, so you definitely get a lot of new content in here. And it's just a fun, short read that you kind of want to talk about to other people. So if you can convince other people to read it, or if you want to talk about it in the comment section, feel free to do so because it was just so not what I expected. When you hear a classic, this is just really not what I had in mind, and I really enjoyed it. Definitely recommend it, totally worth the read, even though, I mean, it's very short, so not a lot of commitment, but it will definitely help you hit your goal at the end of the year. Another classic I really wanted to talk about is by Jane Austen. She didn't only write big novels, she also wrote Lady Susan, which is 119 pages, and it's a short novella. It's very enjoyable. I like her writing style. I find it very soothing for some reason. I find that sometimes some classic can be quite heavy, but not with her. It's an easy read, and I find that she makes fun of her characters quite often in a really enjoyable way. It was also made into a movie, which the name is escaping me. It's Friendship and Something. I'll link everything down below as usual, but yeah, I actually ended up watching it during a reading vlog, and I was laughing my ass off for the beginning because the way they were introducing the characters was just so ridiculous, obviously on purpose, and it was really funny. Definitely recommend it once again if you are someone that enjoys classic. You might not even know that she wrote this, and it was good, but the movie was also good. Let me talk about some classic sci-fi because a lot of them are actually quite short. I always get a bunch of questions about my masterwork edition of all my classic sci-fis. And a lot of these you can already tell by looking at them that they're quite short. Actually, you know what? Special mention. I find that a lot of them might not be favorites for me personally, but they have fascinating concepts. So all of these are under 250 pages. They're not really part of the best of, but you know, just more recommendations because your taste might be different than mine. For example, we have The Forever War by Joe Alderman. Very interesting concept of, yes, war, but also what I personally enjoy was the fact that time relativity was affecting the characters. Basically a few years in space meant a lot more years on Earth, and how he struggled basically adapting. So interesting concept for sure. Then you have Rendezvous with Rama by Arthur C. Clarke, which is kind of a first contact with aliens. Again, a classic for sure. Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep by Philip K. Dick. This one is about androids and how human they can be. Let's just say it that way. So interesting concept. Once again, you have Solaris by Stanislav Law, which is about a sentient ocean, basically first contact with alien on a different planet where it's basically an ocean. I feel like whenever I think about first contact with aliens, it's definitely not a concept I think about, but it was very different. And then last but not least, it's more of a dystopian world really than a classic sci-fi, but still Fahrenheit 451, which was also interesting concept, burning books, you know? But out of all those classic sci-fi, my favorite one, the one I would definitely recommend checking out, is this one, which is The Laugh of Evan by Ursula K. Le Guin. I need to read so much more by her because I've only read this one and her YA fantasy book that I can't remember the name of, which I didn't really care for it, but this was amazing. Essentially following a character who starts having dreams that affect reality. So whatever he dreams happens, and a psychiatrist kind of start using him to try and change the world in the best way possible. But just because you want to change things for the best doesn't mean that's what's going to happen. And it's just a very, very interesting concept once again. Although it was a short book at 184 pages, I can't say it was exactly a short read personally, just because of her writing style. It's definitely more dense, and it definitely made me practice my English. English is not my first language, and if you want to improve, that's definitely a way of doing it. But yes, super interesting concept. I found it overall very, very fascinating, and it made me want to pick up the other books on my shelf, although once again, I'm dreading it a little bit just because of her writing. But The Left Hand of Darkness and The Dispossessed by her, which are apparently amazing too. So I will definitely be picking up more by her and definitely recommend this one. I feel like I never hear anyone talk about this. So if you're looking for more sci-fi books to read, definitely recommend this one. Let's go with a nonfiction book because some of them are actually quite short and enjoyable. And one of the ones I really wanted to talk about is this one, which is We Should All Be Feminists by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. She actually did this as a TED Talk and then it became a book. So one or the other is a great read or listen, but if you want to hit your goal fast, that's definitely an option. She is amazing at summarizing very complex topic in a very casual, accessible way. And she kind of uses a lot of anecdotes from her childhood and how, for example, she was called a feminist whenever she was a kid and kind of tried to dissociate herself from it because it was seen as such a bad thing, especially in Nigeria. And she kind of ended up adopting that name, that title throughout her life and just, you know, wearing it proudly. And yeah, if you get a chance to listen to her in an interview or that TED Talk, I highly recommend you do so. Full disclaimer, I have a crush on her. She's just so charismatic and amazing. But yes, overall, just a really fantastic quick read. It has 48 pages, so you can easily sit down and read this in one go. But even if it was longer, I would have easily read this in a day because of the way she just writes and talks. It's just fascinating. So yes, could not put this book down, definitely recommend it. Also a very important topic for sure. Another author I really enjoy is Gillian Flynn, which we all know from Gone Girl. She wrote a few other books, including a novella, which I feel like we don't hear anyone talk about, and it is this one, which is The Grown Up. And this one has 62 pages, so definitely a short book. I feel like this is actually really different from everything else she's written. You still follow a very interesting, complex, and morally gray female character, which she's known for, and she does so well. I feel like so many other authors try to do something similar and call their books wife, girl, whatever, with those unreliable alcoholic wives, and she does it so much better. But this one is different because it's actually a little bit more paranormal than everything else she's written. Actually, in the back it literally says, "You like ghost stories?" And I did enjoy it. Not my favorite by her, but if you're looking for a quick read and you did enjoy other things by her, I definitely recommend picking up this book because it was quick, it was fun, it was definitely different. Fun fact, but not so fun, actually the only book by her I have yet to read is Gone Girl, because I've watched the movie and struggled to read the book. I read the first 50 pages and it starts kind of slow. But yeah, once I've read that, I will have read everything she has written, so I definitely need more by her. I also really wanted to talk about a series of novellas. So obviously if you like one, you can binge read all 4 of them. The Wayward Children series by Shannon Maguire, the first book being Every Heart a Doorway. This series follow a bunch of kids that kind of stumble upon doors that bring them to magical world, think Narnia. And then whenever they come back to our world, they struggle to adapt and they go to this school that is for them. The first book is a little bit different because there's like a murder mystery happening in there, and all the other books following that tend to have more about, you know, what happened in those worlds, which I think most of us found more interesting. I still really enjoyed the first book. It's actually my second favorite personally. My favorite has to be by far the 4th one, which is In an Absent Dream, and you can technically read it without having read the other ones, that one. So you could totally do that if you read the first one and didn't really care for it. 4th one is just amazing because what I like is that the worlds have like very strict rules, which I enjoy that. That one, for example, is a very logical world. So whatever you take, you have to give back. And, you know, there's just those very strict rules that are something the main character is attracted to. So, you know, the kids tend to go to worlds where they feel like they're more like where they should be. Just be aware that because they're novellas, there's a lot of like passing the action. So like after they save the queen, for example. So that got a little frustrating because I really wanted more from the world because her writing style is just amazing. It just, again, very soothing to me and it just flows very, very nicely. So yeah, overall, definitely recommend the series, but especially the 4th and then the first book are my favorites. Also, quick shout out, I really wanted to mention some high school classics because I find that a lot of them tend to be about 200 pages. So we have The Giver, which is the first dystopian book I've ever read, I think. I didn't speak English at the time, so I struggled to understand any of it, but I did reread it. Was it last year or the year before on BookTube? And I enjoyed it. I find that it's a really great, almost middle grade dystopian world. I find that it's very easy, very accessible, a very quick read too, again, 200 pages, and it's written really big. You can easily read this in a day. I think my main issue with this one was the ending, which is the case for a lot of people, but if that's something that you want to give to a child, for example, for Christmas, definitely would recommend it, but as an adult, it's also very interesting. Same thing with The Outsiders, which is also a book I had to read in English in high school. Okay, I understood nothing, but I watched the movie in English and still understood nothing, but I did reread it and enjoy it. You're following Ponyboy, a young teenager, I guess, and his brothers, basically coming of age type of story. Again, very accessible, 200 pages, a very easy read. Essentially, if you've read some of these during high school, I think it's a really fun thing to reread them as an adult, just to see the contrast of how your perspective changed. Personally, I enjoyed them a lot more as an adult, but it's probably just because I understood them. So I hope you enjoyed this quick little video about shorter books that you might want to pick up and check out for yourself. Don't forget to leave in the comment section actually your opinions on these, if you have read them or if you have more recommendations, because I always like to read shorter books, especially in between bigger ones, just to feel a little bit more accomplished. Because let's be real, whenever I finish a book, I always feel a little like, oh, you know, I did it. And then you can obviously get that feeling more often whenever you read shorter books. So to each their own though. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thumbs up, subscribe. I will be putting more videos on the screen that I recommend you check out. Don't forget to look at them. And I will be seeing you in the next video soon. Bye.